We got a lot to dive into. Jason Fitz from Spain and Fitz, 7 to 9 tonight, right here on 97.3 ESPN. You can hear them guys every weeknight from 7 to 9 on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get into a bunch of different things. We'll start off with the comment that Keyshawn Johnson made this morning on KJZ and get Jason Fitz's thoughts on it, where he said he did not think that Carson Wentz would end his career as an Eagle. And it kind of was an eye-opening thing because you draft a guy at number 2. He has a year where the team goes to the Super Bowl, and you just assume this is our guy forever. But, man, he has been a confusing guy, Jay Fitz, and I wonder, do you see Carson Wentz being one of those guys that ends up being more head-scratching than a guarantee franchise guy?
No, I still think Carson's a franchise quarterback. And unfortunately, what happens, and, we found this last night on Spain and Fitz. So to have a little bit of fun, we put up a bunch of polls over the course of last night. We let people vote on what quarterback they would want to represent their division for the next 4 years. And the most alarming result, the polls were only up for 10 minutes, so it was only about 1,000 people voting on each one. The most alarming result, though, was when we got to the AFC North, 66% of voters said that they would rather have Joe Burrow representing their division than Lamar Jackson. And I asked one of our guys, I said, how could you say that? As much as I love Joe Burrow, because I'm all in on Joe Burrow, how could you say that? And one of my guys on the show said, well, Lamar Jackson hasn't beaten anybody. He can't win the big game. Well, what big game has Joe Burrow won? Like, somebody educate me on that at the NFL level. The problem is the more film we get on every quarterback, the more we decide that film is reason that quarterback's not very good. Like, we have to remember there was a period where people tried to apologize for Russell Wilson, like he wasn't going to be capable of winning games. Now he's going to be the MVP this year, right? Like, I think that we have to understand that there's a little bit of an ebb and flow. This has been a weird year. I'm not saying that Carson Wentz is going to be the next Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. But what are you going to do? You're going to move off of him as the quarterback so that you can take somebody else in the top 5 that you think is going to be a better guarantee than Carson Wentz? We've seen him be incredibly successful. And in my mind, once you've seen that, you know a guy can do it. If you know a guy can do it, It's up to coaches to replicate it.
He's been very head-scratching this year. Now, they did draft a guy in the second round last year. I think that adds some intrigue. And we've talked a lot about, all right, the Jets. They're probably going to get the worst record. They draft Lawrence, and then they trade Sam Darnold. Well, I've mentioned, teams like Tampa that have an older quarterback, Pittsburgh or Indianapolis or New Orleans, those teams that have those older veterans that won't be high enough in the draft to draft a new guy, they make a trade like that. If you're the Eagles, do you say now's the time to try to move them?
No, I don't. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one is, again, I believe he can still play, and I believe he's much better than somebody like Sam Darnold. But the other portion of it is his contract, and if you talk to some of the NFL insiders, is very interesting in the way that they prorated the signing bonus. So one thing you got to keep in mind is that if somebody were to sign or to trade for Carson Wentz, not only would they have to take on his contract, they would have to eat a large portion of guaranteed money in bonus money, which is not always the case in these situations. So I think even if the Eagles wanted to move on from Carson Wentz, it'd be very difficult to do that this year with the contract situation around him. But again, to me, there's a difference, and Carson Wentz is in that conversation that is maddening for so many fans. You guys know I'm a Raiders fan. Derek Carr's become the most polarizing quarterback I can remember in my lifetime. Raiders fans either love him or absolutely hate him with a passion I've never seen for a quarterback that's pretty good. And unfortunately, having a pretty good quarterback seems to be the worst position fans can be in because suddenly they don't love their guy and they want to move on to somebody new. I mean, I still think Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. I believe Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. There isn't somebody that's going to be available in that market that I think is better than Carson.
Yeah, it definitely would be premature to move on from Wentz. But what do you think the issue is? Is it trying to play hero ball too much? Well, he came out to the media and said he's not going to change that because that's his style. Do you think it's play calling with Doug Peterson? I mean, I think Doug Peterson has been worse than Carson Wentz. Or do you think it has something to do with the talent surrounding him or a combination of all three?
Well, it's a little bit of each. I find it troubling when he comes out and says, I'm not going to change who I am. But we find that moxie to be something we admire in quarterbacks when it's going well, right? But then the other side of it is the talent around him. There are some quarterbacks that can make everybody around them better. Just because you're not one of those doesn't mean you're still not a good quarterback. So I'm not sure he's in that category, right? So, but the third part of it is the most under-talked part of it. You guys know, being such an NBA-heavy market, and as much as you watch it, when you got a jump shooter that's not shooting well, what do? You find the shots that are the best for him, and you get him in rhythm. Like, rhythm is everything to jump shooters. It's also everything to quarterbacks. I'm a little bit surprised that Doug Peterson doesn't just have a group of plays that come back and say, okay, Carson needs to get a little rhythm. He needs to get a little momentum. He needs to get a little hot. Let's feed him the ball the right way and make sure that he gets that. I haven't seen that from Doug Peterson. So I think there's a lion's share of blame that also goes to the coaching situation.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned, maybe not making the players around him better, because that's always the conversation when it comes to quarterbacks. And then I look at what we're working with now with Greg Ward coming off the practice squad. Last year, when it came to those 4 games he had to win at the back end of the season, he had guys out there like Robert Davis. Now we're seeing someone like Travis Fulgham. Is Carson Wentz making these players better, and we just assume that they actually are not practice squad players? Or are they really good? I mean, it's hard to really judge, but I question what these receivers are doing now. Is that a product of Wentz playing well when he's playing well, or are they actually good players?
I think that Wentz is the type of quarterback that can make a okay receiver look pretty good, but he's not the type of quarterback that can make an okay receiver look like a Hall of Famer. And, again, I'll go back because of my fandom. I'll go to Derek Carr. Last year at the end of the year, people forget that Derek Carr was throwing the ball to Zay Jones as his number 1 wide receiver. Zay Jones does not belong as the number 1 wide receiver on any team, right? And then you turn around and you look at the success of Patrick Mahomes and you say, but he has Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. Well, Sammy Watkins wasn't a world beater till he got to Patrick Mahomes. So there's a little bit of a line in the middle of all of it. So I think when you look at what Carson's capable of doing, he's a very good quarterback that can make okay quarterbacks look, or okay wide receivers look pretty good, but he's not going to turn a guy that's an undrafted person into a world beater. He's not going to turn a low-level wide receiver into the next NFL Pro Bowler.
Jason Fitz from Spain and Fitz, weeknights right here on 97.3 ESPN, 7 to 9. You can listen to him. Now, yesterday we had Daryl Morey on, and, we asked him, are the Sixers in a better spot than Houston? And he kind of, he danced around it a little bit, but there's been talk about him being interested in James Harden. So, if you're Daryl Morey and you walk into Philly, are you considering moving one of your guys for James Harden?
Man, if you are, you better know that you got coach with you out of the get-go, right? Because what we talked about before that I still think is really true of Philadelphia is you got 3 celebrity chefs in one kitchen running one restaurant. And if you bring in your guy, then you are essentially stepping all over Elton Brand, wherever he falls in this. So, I would be surprised to see the move happen anytime soon, frankly. And I'm not sure if you make that move, why it makes you the best team in the East. I mean, that's the one thing, too, that is really – I've looked at this and I've talked to a couple of different stations about it as we all try and figure out, Harden goes to Philly and what's Houston look like and what's Philly look like. And they both look like pretty good teams that aren't at the top of their conference. And that's where they already are. So is that really a move that suddenly makes you a world beater? I don't think so. So, as much as I love the game of Harden, I'm interested to see what the Rockets are going to do with the new staff and a new mindset around Harden. And he may be trade bait at some point in the season. I just don't know why moving Harden to Philadelphia suddenly makes them better than Brooklyn. And everything at this point is going to be about how do you compete with Brooklyn? Who's going to want to go play with Giannis? Sort of how do you separate yourself at the top of the East?
All right. Are you a dog guy?
Oh, yeah. Massive fanatic.
All right. So you got to kind of interject in our conversation that we had yesterday and our listeners got in on. So Broads over here has a dog. He walks him every day. And the dog goes to the bathroom on this gentleman's lawn every day. He picks it up, okay? He does a nice thing. He picks it up. The gentleman, in a nice manner, said, I would like you to not have your dog poop on my lawn anymore. Broad says, the hell with you. That's where my dog goes to the bathroom. I'm going to continue to do it. Whose side are you on? Broad's and walking the dog and letting him poop there, or the guy who said, please don't do it anymore?
Not only is Broad's doing the right thing by picking up the poop, which number one is, that's not, I'll be the first to admit that as somebody that owns large dogs, like my largest dog is 150 pounds and he poops larger than I do. So I learned a long time ago, just get a large fenced in yard so I don't have to pick that up because it's a little bit too real. All right. As somebody that does not love that, I respect the fact that you're picking it up. If the neighbor has a problem with picked up poop, that's on the neighbor. And frankly, I'd send a message by just not picking it up for about a week and then saying, hey, be careful what you wish for. Like I got a neighbor here in Connecticut that suddenly is starting to rake the leaves and put them over in my lawn because he thinks it's my tree putting them in there. And I'm telling you, what I want to do this weekend is blow all my leaves on a tarp and just set them in his front lawn. Like, you want a neighborhood battle? We'll battle, my man. We will battle. So if you're picking up the poop and he's still got a problem with it, I say next time you poop in his lawn and then say, you didn't say anything about me.
Wow.
Wow. I love this. I'm so stoked right now. See, I was getting ripped. People were texting into the text
The
board.
listeners voted
Oh.
56% that they sided with the owner of the lawn.
Yeah, you have no clue. People were questioning my integrity. They were coming after me saying I was a spoiled brat. It's like, look, this is how society works. You have a dog, you walk the dog, it goes to the bathroom. And by the way, it's not right in front of the steps or anywhere near the driveway. It is so far off to the side of the corner where the stop sign is. There's no way that this should interfere with anything that you do, and I'm picking it up. So I am just disgusted with the actual homeowner.
You know what? I say you take the next time you pick it up in the little baggie, you staple a brochure on a fence and you put it at his front door with the bag and say, you don't want my poop in your front lawn. Get a dang fence, my man. Like, as long as you're picking it up, you ain't doing anything wrong. If you're not picking it up, you're starting a war. But if you're picking it up, you're in the right.
I hope to hear Sarah's input on this tonight during Spain and Fitz, 7 o'clock, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Jason Fitz, you're a gentleman and a scholar.
You guys are the best. Have a great week.
All right. He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.